Get to know all your favorite VRChat DJs all in one place. This is VRCDJLIVE.
That's right, we're doing it live here in VRChat, and it's live because it says so in the title. Welcome, everybody. My name is Rob Roman, and welcome to VRCDJLIVE, the only kind of show that I could think about currently right now that we have DJs talking to other DJs and also DJ communities. It's all about our community, really. We want to make sure that we showcase the best of everybody on this show. And as per usual, it is live, so we are live up on twitch.tv. And glad to see a ton of people in the chat right now, so feel free to ask all of your dying questions. I know I'm sure a lot of people in the community has those amazing questions. Believe it or not, for November, we're going to be hosting a ton of different groups throughout the month, and I am absolutely ecstatic to be here for today's show with three of some of my favorite people that, you know, we don't normally hang out during the regular time because I know how busy you guys are, but I want to introduce everybody as we have the team of Baptizm here with us, and joining us here in the first seat, you got our co-chair, booking, social media, and events person, Bobby. If you want to say hi, Bobby, welcome to the show. And kind of in a desktop mode, but a nice, comfortable desktop mode, if I would say so. Most def. And of course, joining us on the other side of the table, music publishing and web design, as well as art and marketing, with Fokie and Yeb. Welcome to the show.
Howdy. Hello.
Nice to have you here. And Yeb, it's actually really fun to see your avatar. We were kind of loosely talking about what the Baptizm Mascot was going to be, and unfortunately, Fokie did not decide to say anything about being a floating. I don't even know what that avatar is, dude.
It's a Pokemon. That's what we've been calling it so far.
It's just, you got your average-looking Pokemon, but the fact that Yeb is just this bright gold disco ball. Was that the intention, Yeb, to be as?
Originally it was actually an accident. I didn't smooth my faces when I put it into Unity. And so that's why it is so reflective and turned out to be more of a disco ball, but it is originally based on the mannequin that we feature a lot within the Baptizm sphere, I suppose.
Now, is it meant to be spooky? Is it supposed to be like a haunted, spooky thing kind of going on?
With mannequin? So like the idea was that it could be anyone. You can really project yourself into there. We didn't want to kind of shoehorn in, something that felt, very particular to a certain group. Like, realistically, Baptizm is for everyone. We want anyone who wants to be there is more than welcome to be there. And we thought that realistically, the mannequin, it's basically a placeholder for you.
You know, it's honestly interesting just to talk a little bit about mascots, because I know with all the different groups that we have in VRChat, you don't really kind of consider having some sort of a mascotted character. And I think we were talking with HorrorCon VR before their big show a couple weeks ago, that I was like, I'm really sad that there's not like a generalized avatar that people can get into, like a green avatar or even just a medium avatar, because I know how a lot of groups want to have medium avatars or better.
Yeah, honestly, it is a bit of a constant problem. The main reason I started using the mascot, the mannequin avatars, is because they are an excellent. Very simple, easy to retexture, make different variants of, and there are some public ones around there that people can grab if they would like one. But yeah, it's always good to keep the frames running high during events.
But we're not going to be seeing like a public Pokemon. I would assume there's only one, right?
Oh no. This is a Maruru edit, so the creator of Maruru, I appreciate everything, but I love this avatar, and now it's become a part of me. Like there's avatars that just like you fit in, and I felt like that this is one that I really liked to play in.
Oh, no doubt. I know that's kind of one of the best basic questions that I do enjoy to ask on this program. And of course, the people that are hanging out on Twitch right now, feel free to drop down some of your questions for Baptizm. I'm sure you guys got a lot of different questions about either like joining up with these guys, maybe even trying to figure out how to get those coveted DJ slots that I'm sure we're all going to be talking about at some point in time, or even upcoming events, or even just questions about clubs in general. I know we have a couple of people that come to the streams and we talk a lot about world design, map design, stuff like that. And I know Baptism has a very unique design to them. But before we get to all of that, because we're a live program, I know one of the absolute thrilling things that I like to do is kind of kickstart off and just be like, how did each of you guys even consider coming into VRChat? We'll go to Bobby first on this one.
It was just through my roommate, really. Shout out Andrew, the homie. A lot of the Baptism people know him. Yeah, he basically told me to put on this, this brick on my face and get into his virtual world because that's what he liked to do in his free time. And I was like, dude, that sounds dumb as fuck. Why would I ever want to do that? And then I did it, and I'm like, holy shit, I was dumb as fuck because this is like, it's like another world. I don't know. You can do so much stuff through the internet. Like, so basically, my roommate introduced me, and now we're here.
So what was the first couple of, I would only assume with the first couple of weeks, I know the first instance you were probably just running around being like, what am I getting myself into? But talk to us about it, like the first couple of weeks, maybe the first couple of months. Did you kind of start exploring DJ stuff, or what did you end up going down the rabbit hole on in VRChat?
Yeah, a lot of really like OG friends of mine will know we started like almost day one with RTTG. It was like this really old sort of like kind of like club thing that we started in Club Orion. So like the first instance I was in was basically the VRChat default homeworld and then Club Orion. So it was a pretty quick like pathway right into music and stuff like that.
Nice. And of course you guys, same question.
Oh yeah, I mean, so in terms of when I started VRChat, it was during the pandemic. I wanted to have like some sort of social place to talk to people because I felt pretty isolated during that time, and I thought it was really cool. I'm a game designer, and I loved the idea of like these, people coming together in a virtual space and it being pretty much the closest thing to like, I don't know, like a real life like interaction in a video game where you can see people's body movements and such. So I thought it was fascinating. And then learning about that there's shows in this space was even more fascinating to me, that like people do these, performances and like have clubs and all that stuff, communities. I don't know, it's a very cool thing.
So as game development, did VRChat kind of like, was that the first thing that you got to experience as far as virtual reality was concerned? Or I know for a lot of people that they see a lot of content on YouTube concerning about, like, for example, for me, it was the Uganda Knuckles that got me into this. So was there some sort of a stream? Was this some sort of, or did it just kind of show up on your Steam library, or?
Well, so one of the first projects that I worked on as a UX designer was a VR game for, it was about like teaching kids about how to like experiencing different environments and gravity on different planets. And that was a Meta Quest headset program. So I did like some consulting with the team. It was like a 4-month contract. And then when I was working on it, and I saw VRChat, and I've heard about it before because, Uganda Knuckles, like that's, everywhere. So, and yeah, I was just like, all right, well, I'll just give it a shot. It's a free game, and here I am.
Many years down the road, you're still here, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
No doubt. And yeah, same question for you too. I mean, through artistic design, we're also going to be kind of delving into that a little bit later, because of how much art is involved when it comes to baptism. But what were your first couple of instances into virtual reality, and how did you even come to be in virtual reality?
I came a bit earlier, I think. I came pre-pandemic. My father was really interested in the tech at the time, and he got me a headset. So much like a lot of other people, played Half-Life Alyx, absolutely loved it. Then basically went to Steam and saw what other VR games there was. Played quite a bit of VRChat right at the start of their pandemic. and then put down the headset for a couple of years, came back, and it was a thriving music community.
That just kind of happened to explode, huh? It just kind of came out of nowhere. It started existing, I suppose. But we'll bring it back to Bobby. And I'm, again, we want to go back to where the first couple of times of Baptizm started. And of course, there's a ton of groups with a ton of different DJs and a ton of different vibes. How did you, Bobby, get into even creating Baptizm? And tell us a little bit about the origins of how this came to be.
I think it was just after a kind of like a long night with sort of like a really low attendance thing that we were running. This was pre-baptism, was even an idea. So, but I was with Fokie, and we were both kind of upset. We were like, "There's not particularly a space in the game that sort of like hosts this type of sound that we like, which is like this really grungy, like super just abrasive neuro." Because it's not like normal drum and bass or like dance floor. It's pretty intense, so it's kind of hard to like facilitate spaces where people actually like listening to it. A lot of people consider it to be just kind of like almost like a noise. And so finding people who sort of appreciated at the time what Fokie and I did was pretty hard to do. And so I think Fokie texted me at like 4 a.m, and he was like, "Bro, this shit is like annoying me." And I was like, "Yeah, bro, I was gonna like the same shit." It's like super annoying to just play the music you like, and then there wasn't a space for people to actually not necessarily appreciate it, but more enjoy it. And then Fokie was like, "We should just make our own thing." And I was like, "Dude, that's a great idea." And so I still have the original drawings because Fokie and I drew them up on our phones, or at least I drew mine on my phone. I don't know if Fokie did.
Well, if I could shoot off
Yeah.
with you, I mean, it was just me and Bobby wanting to play drum and bass without the worlds clearing out. I mean, there was a time where nobody was like vibing with our music. Like Bobby knows what I'm talking about,
Real shit, yeah.
And I went and started to I went into Figma and I created the like cross logo that we have, and now we use it as like the T in the baptism, and now it's like our logo, which is pretty cool. And Bobby and I were just mocking up ideas of like, and also writing like what the name of the project would even be. We were just like, we just want to play drum and bass, like without feeling like that we had to compensate. We really wanted to just play the music that we love, and that was how the conversations really started. And then we came with Baptizm. That's
now kind of coming back to like 2022 in general, especially with the pandemic happening. I've been seeing a lot of repetition over the fact that during COVID, a lot of people did use VRChat as not really as an escape, but another way of communication and learning about music and stuff like that. Tell us about the scene when Baptizm was first beginning, and if there were any complications or issues that you were running into. Because while I'm still kind of learning about drum and bass overall, was it really that? Was it as big as it is then that it is now, to the problems when you were first coming up with Baptizm?
What do you mean? Like, what problems were big then?
Well, I was being like I feel like drum and bass in VRChat is such a huge deal, so much so that it's like, well, if you don't play drum and bass, are you good enough to be a DJ, kind of a thing. And as you guys were mentioning how you were looking to get your own space to do drum and bass, was it a problem of it being an issue that there wasn't enough spaces to do drum and bass, or was just the scene so large that you wanted to get your own kind of slice of the pie?
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I'll say something after Bobby, but go ahead, Bobby. Sorry.
There definitely was not a place to play the type of neuro that we played. There was not. I know Sanctum was running at the time, but they've been multi-genre for as far as I can tell, or for as long as I've like known about Sanctum. They aren't specifically like because we're pretty cookie cutter neuro. Like, you need to be playing neuro if you're playing like on one of our events or pretty heavy stuff. And so yeah, I don't think that there was a space that was open for that type of sound except for our TTG. But that's because we just let anybody play anything. I mean, we even had, if you guys know Lanzor, we had smooth jazz as an opener quite a few times for Lanzor. And so we would just let anybody play whatever. So that was not necessarily an issue then. But yeah, no, I just don't think there was a space that we felt. I don't want to use the word appreciated because like you have to kind of like earn that appreciation, but more like where people would actually enjoy the music. Because you know the whole point of you being a DJ is you have to play something that people enjoy and want to listen to. And so if you have to curate your own space to sort of like show them what they're missing, quote, then you know, power to you. Please do that. You know.
Yeah. Fokie,
Yeah,
you had to take on that?
yeah, no, and I was just gonna, say like it's not that it's not been played in VRChat, and it's been, it's one of the more popular genres of EDM. It's merely like I guess we wanted something that was more US times as well, something that because when I started doing the DJing in VRChat and such, like I was playing in like Tartarus, and there was like it was basically dubstep. I used to play dubstep, and then wanted to start playing drum and bass. And when I started playing drum and bass, it didn't seem like people really vibed with it. And I think it's just, it's just dubstep was a more popular genre, and it still is. It's just that now we're seeing a interest in drum and bass quite larger now than it was before in US time specifically, right? So I mean, that's a cool thing to see.
I would also add that drum and bass is a very large genre. There's a lot of subgenres to drum and bass. It's more specifically neurofunk. That specific sound is there wasn't really a space. Like jungle is very popular within VRChat, and there's a lot of spaces who do play that and do a really good job at putting on events specifically for that. So, but neurofunk's always been had a little bit of a hole in the NA time zone.
There's one of the questions, one of the many vast questions, especially as we continue to roll into 2025. And Fokie, I know we were discussing a little bit earlier this year. We both had an opportunity to go over to Amsterdam and enjoy Liquicity and the drum and bass community. Not to even completely mention, a lot of our DJ friends were out there performing. We were about 65, 70 people strong that entire weekend, which is just such an outrageous number. But one of the things that, as someone who is starting to learn a lot about drum and bass, as well as European drum and bass coming over to the Western cultures, do you think that it's getting here fast enough compared to what we got to experience full throttle in Amsterdam?
Ah, gosh, I mean, I can't really, I don't really like know the correct answer to that. Just because like you'll see DJs that are in the US and they'll play drum and bass and stuff, but like like for example, there's artists like Justin Hawks was there. He's a US drum and bass guy, right? I guess like in reference to like Baptizm, we're doing like more of the neurofunk stuff, and I mean, yeah, I haven't really. There's like Scorpion is like one of the people that we love, and he's a US guy. So, it's getting there, I just haven't seen, maybe I'm just wrong. Bobby, you might be able to like pick out a name. Bobby's more of like granular on the specific neuro artists, but, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know how to really answer that. It's just kind of like, drum and bass, it's just more popular in Europe. It's it's played quite a bit.
I mean, it's quite the question for Bobby as well. Do you see some more, not even just a matter of rising artists, because I know on my front, I see a lot more of EDC or we see like a lot of Tomorrowland stuff. But when it comes to drum and bass, I feel like people are still kind of hesitant to kind of get up into that type of genre here in the Americas.
What's the question?
Well, what kind of a rise do you see in drum and bass from European coming over to the Western cultures?
I really don't. I don't know if I'm just not looking hard enough, but I don't see like a lot of stuff, particularly, I guess, stuff that we play. If you're talking drum and bass in general, I know like Chase and Status and the D&B All Stars people have been doing a lot of like US based stuff.
Yeah.
But that's more of like the jump uppy crowd. Not that I don't like, I like jump up. It's just not the stuff that we play. Yeah, I'd say there's been an increase, which is great. I'm glad that there's like more drum and bass insets, and I know I've talked to a bunch of people, or people send me clips of like really big DJs playing drum and bass insets. So like Shaq had a clip not that long ago. I know that there's been a lot of like smaller communities popping up. I live in Minnesota, and so there's I think 3 or 4 pretty good small time drum and bass. I guess like events. I wouldn't really call them a club because they're not like dedicated spaces. They're more of like a once a month thing, once every 2 months. But yeah, I've seen some of those circulated on Facebook. I think it's starting to pick up, but I would like it to go faster.
And you would also say that like Baptism would also just be a really good vehicle to not only bring European drum and bass culture, but also include Western culture into a mix of that to hopefully, kind of spread it out, spread the love a little bit, right?
Yeah, obviously the end all be all goal would be, we can do baptism stuff in America and then sort of like hitch on to these other big event spaces and do like I've always dreamt of like a baptism league. I don't know if you're familiar with like things like Eat Brain leagues or Blackout leagues, but basically they take their artists and put them on those big stages, whether it's like a back four back or something like that. And I'd love to do something like that for those like European like festivals and events. Like I'd love to have like maybe a baptism league at Rampage, maybe a baptism league at Darkshire, maybe a baptism league at Let It Roll. Just some of those larger spaces. Eventually, like in 10, 15 years, maybe hopefully less time, but we got a lot of work to do before we're at that level.
It's also really good to continue to see your group thriving and showing some really good promise on social media, as well as a lot of interests in virtual reality. I know I've been coming to a lot of baptism shows early, and it gets kind of full pretty quick. It's even just opening the doors and having people come in and grab a spot. So definitely kudos to what you guys have been doing for the past couple of years. So Yeb, I want to kind of head over to your direction right now for someone that works a lot with the art styles of baptism, and talk to us a little bit about your passions and where art began for you, and how it continues and you stay motivated within baptism.
Yeah, well, my start into art is not the traditional start. Like I am hopeless at drawing. I can't paint. I'm not a traditional artist. I went down the live production route. Did a bit of work in radio. Did some stuff in theatre and film. And then really got immersed in the techno scene in Australia. That really led me to wanting to be more involved with just live music, and that got me more into the VJ route. Like I'm a dog shit DJ, but I am okay at VJing. I can make some flashy visuals every so often. That led me down the route of 3D, basically, learning your Blender, your Houdini, your Maya, that kind of thing. And that's really where my skills and my passion lie. So originally, if you look at a lot of the earlier baptism work, it's pretty much all 3D renders. But over time, as the team has grown and we've got more people in, we've been able to do a lot of composite arts of different styles. We've got 2 fantastic illustrators. We have got some absolute Photoshop gurus. We've got a typographer now. Like as I said, over time it's definitely grown and changed. But yeah, me personally, I mostly work on 3D renders, 3D animation stuff, and then also, obviously, the really boring, making sure everyone, making the actual art direction for a project and getting all of the jobs allocated to everyone who needs to do it and making sure things are on time. So I would say I spend, now that we've got a much bigger team, a lot of time on that, but I still do a significant amount of the 3D work when it comes to the art side of things. Obviously, when it comes to world development, that's a whole separate department of incredibly talented people.
It's kind of another step in the next direction of where I was looking to head with the 3 of you here, is just obviously through all of us and our interests in virtual reality and DJing and the different clubs and maps that are available. Let's just kind of take a walk through what you guys have seen in the past that you think work really well when it comes to clubs and map generation? And where do you guys think that we should be heading or focusing in 2025? Bobby, if we want to start with you.
I think there needs to be less voice dampening. I'm not a big fan of voice dampening. I feel like if you're there, I mean, there's one of two reasons that I've seen people go to events. Well, I guess there's more than two, but two main ones that I would seem to have experience with. One of them is going to like an event and just drinking and hanging out with your friends. The other one is like going to see the DJs you really enjoy. And so I feel like if you curate an event space like properly, I think you wouldn't need to have like voice dampening, especially if you like want to talk to all your buddies, like if you want to like jump around or you really like the DJ that's playing or something. I don't know. I have a hard time hearing people, as everybody I've ever talked to knows. So voice dampening is kind of a difficult thing. And then secondly, I would say stop making venues so big. Currently we're capped to 80 people. And so if you make a venue the size of a football field, even if you're capped with a 1 million person queue, your venue is going to look empty. That's probably only for like photographers and like a stream camera where it would really matter. If you don't, let me rephrase. If you can't fit your idea into like a super small space, I think you should just make it however you want it. But my personal opinion is that like, I think if you have a smaller event space, you're able to sort of interact with people better. You can feel the energy more. Certainly as a DJ, from that perspective, the closer people are to the decks, the easier it is to play well. I know that sounds insane, but it's like you feed off their energy, their hype.
Nice. Fokie, what do you have?
Well, yeah, so I'd just like to kind of play off what Bobby said in regards to, I mean, this is like a world design kind of thing, but I mean, in the beginning, we were always kind of thinking about what kind of space we wanted to make, and the smaller spaces, the design philosophy of it is like, because of the limitations of VRChat, those smaller places create more of an intimate space, makes it feel like it's more of a live show when you go out to a club or an event where everybody's packed together. Because of the limitations of VRChat, we have to kind of compensate for that by making the event space smaller. And I like it that way, personally. But like I said, we're trying to cater to a specific kind of person who wants to go see music, like drum and bass, neurofunk music. They want to be in a place that feels like a live show. I think those bigger spaces cater to a different crowd of listeners. So
Okay. Yeah, what do you have?
Well, obviously, I have to agree with the space thing. It does feel very, very empty when you're, and it feels you're quite alone as well in these really big venue spaces. I would say the thing that I find frustrating is incredibly long entrances. Like, you've got to make and design your world to the lowest IQ individual, who is me. I will not be able to find your teleportation button. I will have to walk in for 10 minutes every single goddamn time.
What do you mean? You don't want to spawn in front of the DJ when you first get in? Is that not plausible?
you have to complain about Tucker Kim.
I can complain about Tucker Kim, which was a 15-second walk. And like our newer venue as well has an incredibly short walk. So you're basically straight into the venue. Like, you got to imagine that people are going to get lost. They're going to have issues. And I understand, as a world developer, you want to make something incredible. You want to tell a story, and you want to really flex your skills. But it becomes a bit of a problem for people like me who have issues trying to find the teleportation buttons. And I can say, the first time, it is amazing walking into an incredible venue. Digital Frog, for example, does some fantastic work, and I can remember walking into one of his venues and just being in awe at what he did. But I can tell you, by the third time of me having to walk down there, it could have been a little bit shorter. And then I found the teleportation button. But yeah, that's what I would say really is an issue. But the big venue problem is going to be an issue until we have the hardware and the VRChat updates and gives us more people in a venue. So I would say that that's probably the biggest issue, but yeah, world creators, if you can shorten your walk-in lengths for venues, I would very much appreciate that.
I'll also say too that I've been equally impressed on when I am watching the streams that they get your camera zooming around and it looks full and everyone's having a great time, even though it looks like it could be packed. Not packed as in like, it's a packed instance, but more like, it's nice and compact, I guess I could say. Having enough people in enough space that it makes it look like there's still enough time to breathe. You don't have to smell everybody. You don't have to rub elbows with everybody. But I think that just that alone looks amazing. And so one of the things that I wanted to kind of get into, I know Yep says he doesn't do any DJing, right? I know you were saying that.
Correct. Yeah. I don't do any DJing in VR. I haven't touched decks for probably about 6 years. I just do VJing.
So I guess a really brilliant question would be has anybody really pressured you into trying to learn it? When is the Yep debut?
Really. Yeah. I would say that this is a general thing with VRChat, but it's also a general thing you'll find in the IRL world as well, that there is a lot of people who can DJ and a lot of incredibly talented people. And for me personally, yes, it would be fun probably to DJ and play in front of the crowd. But I think there's a lot of people who have put in a lot of time and have a lot of skill who really deserve that position compared to with VJs, right? There is a huge lack of available VJs in VR. And there's some incredibly skilled people. And I do understand as well, as a VJ, making footage, actually preparing for a set properly, it can take a lot of time. But a lot of the time, people who come into it don't even really, newer people to the scene at least, don't really understand the whole VJing thing and that they really exist. And so I think a lot of people get pushed into DJing rather than going down the other production routes like your LDs and your VJs.
Yeah, that's a really fantastic point that you're leading into. And honestly, we haven't had enough time in VRCDJLIVE history yet to even go down that rabbit hole. I know through Bobby and Fokie, we're going to kind of get into some DJing in a little bit, but I am a little interested on your take on, as you were saying, there's not a lot of VJs. How can someone within our community that, let's just say they do DJ and they want to have a second skill, what are the kind of things would they need to be having or to start working on or even start looking up, despite the obvious of just like coming up to you for questions?
Yeah, of course, anyone is free to send me a message and I can point you in the right direction. I know that Necklace and Scenic, both of those guys, legendary figures in the community. You'll know Scenic from doing most of the VJing for Tube. He also was the head for Slyfest as well. Those guys have a Discord server put together. Basically, it's a learning resource and a discussion resource for VR VJs. And LDs as well. There's even less of those guys. But if you need help, I can tell you the community is amazing at putting you on the right direction, helping you find clips and footage, choosing like the correct software packages. I would say also people think it's a lot harder than it is. The entry level into doing your first set, it's really not that hard. It's a bit daunting, but it's not the hardest thing to do. Obviously, when you want to do the most amazing thing ever, there's a lot of skill that some of these people have, but the entry point is a lot easier than people think. I would say it's easier than DJing.
Do you see, like, for example, when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking on the lines of a DJ who does anime conventions, and I see a lot of very passionate people learning how to do anime music videos. Is it something as simple as that, as you were saying, kind of generating as practice, kind of generating like an anime music video or putting video footage to a particular tune, or how can people be practicing this?
I would say it's down the same route. If you can listen to music, you can hear beats, you can like get a feeling of it. Like the whole job of a VJ is to show what the music is saying. Like you're trying to make a visual representation of what the music's feel is. That's what I think the job of a VJ is, at least. And that's very similar when you're looking at music edits, particularly AMVs. It's about sitting there, putting your markers down for where you want to chop your scenes. It's much the same with VJing. There's obviously a lot of different styles of VJing and way to do it. It's a very, very dynamic route. I had a friend who was VJing for a folk festival here in Australia, and what they did is basically did an illustration drawing during the set. They just spent an hour drawing a tree, and that is completely fine. If you want a VJ like that, I think that's amazing. There's also your dancer VJs who will dance to the music and be able to mix that in with other visual elements to create a really engaging visual presentation of the music. Then there's obviously your more traditional VJs who make their clips outside, whether that's After Effects, your Cinema 4D, your Blender, whatever it is, and mix that live to the music. There's so many different routes to get into VJing and really express like your artistic vision as well as what you think the music is saying.
Now, I know a lot of the times here on this program we go back and forth between hobbyist and professionalism, and especially when it comes to VJing and getting a portfolio ready for that sort of thing. How would you find the best transition between working here and then maybe trying to find work for maybe a large festival or even just having people for an IRL event that you choose to put together?
Well, festivals is a bit different. That's a bit about, knowing the right people and getting your way in there through promoters. I would say, though, if you want to get started with IRL stuff, find a smaller local group. For me, there's a techno group in Sydney, Australia, who've been fantastic. Just send them a message and be like, hey, I'm a new VJ. I'm willing to do some work for free. Like, put me on. I'll do a good job. Most of these events, these smaller events, don't run VJs at all. Like, they don't have the money or the equipment, and it's pretty easy just to get a projector thrown up in the background and bring your laptop along and mix live with the music. And most of these guys are very, very open to new people entering the scene, particularly in those other production avenues that's not just DJing.
Another reason why I bring that up is I know a couple of festivals ago, a couple of conventions ago, I was working with an agency who brought in their own VJ to help one of the talents put on a show with visuals and have it go with the music. But just as you're saying that, like, we do have the technology as DJs that we can also implement it through our software where we can put in visuals that counteract, like if you were going to play music videos with a specific song, that it'll actually go in time to going back and forth with it. But it's nice to see your take on it, especially when a lot of people do come into these groups and clubs that they see the visuals, but they never really see what goes on behind the scenes or how many people it does take to run something, especially if they're like, whoa, sick visuals, bro. But at the same time, they're either drinking or they're there for another purpose, whether they're there for your friend. But it's always really nice. It's very refreshing to kind of get that take on that, especially because as DJs, our job is to just perform, and we don't really think too much about the visual side of it. But it's really nice to hear your opinions on that. Now, kind of going back with these two, Bobby and Fokie, is you guys DJ a lot. Actually, I've seen Bobby DJ a lot on Twitch recently. But tell us a little bit about your origins. Tell us a little bit about how you even started. Maybe even give us a background of the type of equipment you've owned before, or how you first started with it, and where you are now.
I first started as what you'd call like a link poster. So I'd basically just get my quote set and put it in a Google Doc and post the links of the music I wanted to listen to. And that's how we started RTTG. And then one day, somebody was saying some things that weren't very nice, and Yeb overheard them. And so Yeb had decided to purchase me my first DJ controller, which was a DJ 400.
That's nice.
And then I got pretty hooked on it. So that's kind of where that started. And then I suppose I just DJ'd and DJ'd and DJ'd. I used to run hip hop and bass house and dubstep. And then I found drum and bass through Cientolo, which is kind of funny. That was the first drum and bass track I've ever heard. I know that's like I don't know about hated on track, but it is definitely overplayed. But that one has a special place in my heart because, like, that was the first time I discovered drum and bass. So then, shortly after that, I realized, like, not half a drum and bass, but a good percentage of it, you have to have more than 2 channels to run. At least with how I wanted to play it, and how I saw all these other guys that I looked up to playing it. And so I got an FLX6, and then my first FLX6 was kind of defective. The jog wheels didn't work very well. So I got an FLX6 GT, which was just a graphite colored one. and then I ended up selling that, and I ended up buying a Prime 4 Plus, which is what I'm running now. And so that's just that's what I play on. That's what I've been playing on for like 14 months or 15 months.
How often do you practice, or how many shows do you end up doing, even just this year alone?
I don't know. There are weekends where I don't have a single DJ set, and there are weekends where I play 6 times a weekend. It just depends. It depends on how I'm feeling. I usually try not to do too much. It's like those weekends where I play, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets. I've been like really craving to just DJ. I think it's safe to say I practice every day. Whether it's finding new music, working in like FL to learn patterns and like analyzing tracks and then throwing them on the decks and trying routines out and seeing what works and taking notes about what doubles will work and what won't and EQing tips and videos, and it's just I don't know. I pretty much breathe drum and bass. I don't know. I'd say probably I practice every day, just because I really enjoy it.
Do you also eat, sleep, and rave drum and bass?
Not eat. I have had dreams about drum and bass before, but that's because I'm psychotic, probably.
No, the reason
and
why you
then-
said you breathe in drum and bass, so I wanted to make sure that you
Oh,
get
for
all
sure.
all 3 meals of your drum and bass.
Yeah, exactly. And then I would love to rave drum and bass, but there's nothing that's like really what I want to hear in Minnesota, which, uh, we're working on it. We're working on it.
Fokie, same question for you. So tell us a little bit about your DJing stylings, and got some other questions that I'm going to ask you a little bit later in a minute too.
Do like the past or just
Yeah, because I would assume that you do a little bit of DJing as well, and
I do. Yeah, absolutely. So if I could just like give like a background for me. So in 2010 is when I started DJing, and I was a dubstep DJ under the name Ariok. I was able to play some cool events. I did 2 tours. I released music under Heavy Artillery Recordings, and I've done a remix for Figure. It was a really good time. I really enjoyed that. Then I went back to school. I got a degree at Berklee College of Music for music production, and I went on to be mentored by some awesome producers that helped me get into TV and film sync licensing. I was able to secure 7 placements on TV shows. It was it's a great time, and then the pandemic happened, and I decided to just go into game design as a more stable career. It's very hard to make money in music, but you have to really love it, right? However, all that being said, drum and bass has just always been a genre I've deeply loved. The first genres of music I really got into were psytrance and drum and bass. Now I'm glad to be a part of all of this, and the Fokie name has been like my Steam name for ages. Like it was my Steam. It started as my Star Wars Galaxies screen name. I don't know if you ever played that game, Rob, but
obviously there's a lot of Star Wars games. We talk about Fallen Jedi.
No, so this was an MMO from like 2004, and I was like super young, and this was Fokie was the randomly generated name that I got from it. So, and then I just decided that I wanted to have this as like an artist name and actually play drum and bass, because it was one of those things that I always loved to listen to. And yeah, that's my story. About music.
That's where you're at right now. Yeah, no, we have a lot about. We've talked a lot in the past about Berklee College of Music and just having music production and all that sort of stuff through that college is just fantastic to have, especially as you're continuing on with your journey. I've even also kind of noticed through Baptisms that you also put out music through Baptism.
Yes. So I had the like indie music label branch. We call it Baptism Resonances. It's a fairly new thing. We have like 9 artists that have released under us. So my background in music industry has been pretty helpful to growing this part of the project, and I I think it's like a great thing because it's Bobby helps bring the live artists into the virtual space, and I'm providing a vehicle for the VR artists to get their content out to the world. So I think that that's like a very cool cyclical process that we have. That's a cool thing that we've been starting, and all the music that we've been putting out has been really awesome. Really grateful for all the artists that put their time into giving
I
that.
think that's a very unique thing for a group from VRChat. Obviously, we all have our own things that we're really passionate about and the things that we would like to bring forward in our community, but that's something that it's just so uncommon ground to see groups do that. Tell us a little bit about that process and some of the, as the website has stated, that you did bring in some outside DJs coming in. Tell us a little bit about how all of this process began, what their thoughts are about the DJ community in VR, and kind of where that's headed.
Yeah, that's definitely a question for Bobby, because Bobby's just the events person, and as time rolls on, they'll be more integrated into the releases stuff. As we grow that portion. Our the label portion has been really trying to focus on helping those artists in VR who are super talented and they just don't have that outlet to put their music out under somebody who's willing to finance, invest, and grow a portion of their brand, within our genre that we like, neurofunk, drum and bass, and such. So but yeah, Bobby is definitely the person that has the live connections and helps them come into the space to see how cool it is, to do the virtual shows. So if Bobby wanted to kind of talk about the process of that.
Yeah. It's actually really, really simple. I basically find a DJ that I really like. Actually, let's start at step one. I find a producer that I like. Not every producer DJs and not every DJ produces. So I find a producer that I really like, and I pretty much just go on every form of social media and see if I can find videos of them performing, if they do perform, and then go to YouTube and check if they DJ there. And then it's as simple as shooting them a direct message on Instagram, or if they have a Discord server, joining that and talking with them. It's really simple if you know how to talk to someone in terms of you don't want to look at them as a transactional thing. You want to look at them this is just a person that you appreciate their art and you want to showcase their art in a different format. And a lot of guys, when you really talk to them one-on-one level, will understand that and fully support the project. They won't they'll never complain about super late set times because they're from Europe and we run US drum and bass, so for them it's 3 a.m. or something. I've never been asked for money for a VR set yet. We're putting a big air quotes yet. Haven't been asked to be paid by anybody. And everybody that we've had on has been excited to either come back again or have been telling their friends about it and sort of deepening that connection with that side, I suppose. So I don't know, it just depends. You got to find someone who's really passionate about what they do and kind of can understand branching out into new avenues. Because there's not a lot of places that will bring large scale IRL DJs into VR. It's just not. It's a new thing for pretty much everybody. I mean, VR as a whole, is a new thing. What, 2014 or something? Super, super new. And so trying to explain that to these people who've been DJing for longer than VR has been a concept is, it's interesting, and they sort of understand that it's kind of a new growing platform. You'd think it'd be harder to sell something like that, but no, they understand. They can see the vision, and they can see maybe in 5 years we'll have full-fledged VR events with actual financial backing to them and super good acts and really talented people on the production side, just putting everything together.
Now, despite having that good marketing tool to say, hey, we're starting this record label, we want to be able to continue to promote the existence of all these musicians, DJs, producers, and that's something, again, not a lot of groups in virtual reality are doing right now. So just having that good first step is always a very positive piece to our rolling on to our future in our DJ community. But just as we had an opportunity at Liquicity this past year to kind of express how large our community is, what do you think would be the next steps to start inviting, or even just mentioning how amazing our community is to a lot of these performers? And where do you think that we're going to be do you think we're going to be getting a lot more IRL performers into the virtual space to perform?
Okay. Firstly, I think the biggest thing that needs to happen for this to even be an option for a lot of performers outside of VR is that you need to have bigger lobbies. I think once you get bigger lobbies, I think you are able to go to the moon with this. I think if you cap out, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't think it's possible. I don't think there's the technology to load like 250 avatars in. But a lot of these guys will be, they will go to a club and they will get paid to play to like 300 or 500 people. And so if your offer to them is, hey, we're going to market you to 80 people, that's like not very much to a lot of these people. So you first need to raise the lobby cap by a significant amount, 2 or 3, 4 times. As for if I think more IRLs are going to come into VR, that's a tough question. It's kind of a weird spot because there's such bad press on VR in general. Like, everybody is like, VR is, a place for these people to talk to your kids, and they're unprotected and there's nothing that, you can't keep your kids safe, or these like creeps just like being creeps. I mean, it's like there's a lot of stuff that you'd have to regulate to get more IRLs behind that idea. And that obviously starts with us. You have to, hold your people accountable, remove those bad people. And then the issue with VR is I feel like if there's bad people that get removed, they just come back. They're kind of like a, I don't know what you'd call it, like something that, like a cockroach, like you can't get rid of them. And I think, well, like, no, for real. Like, and I think that it's a hard sell to be like, hey man, there are people who have, who are racist, who are transphobic, who are homophobic in our space that are allowed to be here after they've been, quote, canceled. And then you have to sell that to somebody who cares about their brand. I mean, it's a hard sell, like, seriously. So you'd have to either cultivate a space that is completely accepting of everything, and there's no what do they call it, bad actors. There's no bad actors in your area. You have to show that you have good enough social media reach to actually be able to promote them. And then you have to have more than 80 people watching them live in the instance to probably super sell it.
Now, obviously, right now we're still kind of capped at 80. And I would really love to think somewhere in the future that VRChat has had many, many, many talks about either, continuously having this DJ community tree grow into something not really worth value as far as, like, again, VRChat currency and having tickets at the door or paid entry or something like that. But in a more perfect world, when we can go outside of 80 people and everyone has the best computers, where would you see the cap kind of being extended to, maybe even just into the new year?
Cap of how many people are in the instance? I'm sorry.
Yeah, because you were just explaining how, like, having some of these IRL performers come in, and we want to be able to have such a really large space for them, as well as a huge group of people there to be a part of it. But of course, within our instances, we can only technically allow 80. I know people were saying, well, we could push 90. But we're still having a hard time with 80. But it just in a future instance, how many people would you think is enough people to come in to see some of these IRL performances?
I think you could reasonably market 250 people, but you'd have to sell that pretty hard with social media reach and Twitch viewership. I think if you can promise them, a couple thousand views on like a social media post and maybe like 250 in the lobby and let's say like 50 on Twitch, I think a lot of people would do that. I find it hard to believe that a lot of DJs wouldn't already have a set recorded. And so sending you a set and then just you like running, like having their account there, like they're just standing there chilling, watching their set play. I think that's a really feasible option. Especially because trying to, ask somebody to come play live first time is going to be pretty hard to do. Not only from time zone differences, but also like equipment. Some of these really popular guys don't have home equipment. It's just something they just don't. They're more focused on, producing, and so they have all their money into like production gear instead of like DJ equipment. Because DJ equipment, it gets pretty spendy pretty quickly. But yeah, I'd say you probably need like a 250 person lobby to reasonably sell the event to someone, or you have to have enough staff to run however many instances you need. Because with multi-instancing, the hard part is not the people. The hard part is the moderation and keeping up the quality across each instance. Because if you want to stand out in the virtual space, you want to run something that's super super high quality, and you need to have a big ass team to do that. We have, I think it's 26 or 27 currently rostered staff members to run pretty much everything for one instance. So, think of adding like 20 extra people to get 2 or 3 going.
And then being able to just check in with your staff too to make sure that everybody's doing their job. 50 people running many different instances. You can't actually physically see what's going on unless you have a multi-camera system and making sure that they're doing their job. Unless, of course, someone gets reported, then you have to deal with it. That's a good way of looking at it. For you guys over here, what is your opinion on that? Kind of reaching out to a lot of these IRL performers coming into VRChat space. Do you think that it'll continue to grow into 2025?
I'll let Yeb speak.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance of it continuing. I'd also say it's a lot to do with what these IRL performers expect versus a lot of the clubs that VRChat have are very, very casual environments. And not all of them are expecting that. And I can tell you with art and promotion as well, a lot of them do expect a lot of work to be put into this. Like for me personally, we have to create avatars for these guys. A lot of them don't obviously have a pre-existing avatar. They need something made up. Anyone who works in avatar creation knows that is time is money, and there's a lot of avatars that always need to be done. And it's the same across all of your promotions, whether it's your flyers, your video promotion, and your social media reach. So maintaining that to a high quality really helps us, I suppose, being taken seriously by these artists. So I think that's really important. But I would say that the biggest limit with VRChat with live artists is going to be the instance caps at the moment. Mm-hmm. It's something that really needs to be explored, to be risen. I remember a long time ago, AltSpace VR had, I think, Diplo come and play. But obviously that's not VRChat with its highly customable avatars. That's a Windows program that reminded me of avatars from 90s video games. So it's definitely possible. Like, I'd say the technology exists to be able to run these huge instances, just not with the quality that we've come to expect from VRChat. And I suppose that's something the devs need to work out what the priority is there, and also waiting for the technology to get to that point.
Yeah, I would say I definitely agree with Bobby. It has to be like 200, 250. It has to feel like that you're at an actual event in real life that experience of like, you know, a capped room. You know, like the 250 person event is like, I don't know, that's small to medium kind of like, you know, and so 80 is small, and it's just if it could get to that 250, I think that would be kind of where people would say, oh yeah, this feels like that I could go here. And if somebody was looking to actually do like tickets or something, it would be more of an attractive thing, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, there's DJs that this is their job, you know, they get paid. And, you know, so if you're trying to do that, right, you know, you have to have some incentive. And a bigger space will just bring more, you know, incentive to that.
So we're talking with the guys from Baptizm VR. Of course, you can visit them, baptism.net, I believe that's what it is. And you can find a bunch of information as far as seeing future events, your staff lineup, as well as more information about the record label, and even seeing a picture of these guys just, you know, floating around in VR space. There you go, as our producer has put down. Kind of a hot take for you guys, as we were kind of talking about how many people we can put into an instance for having 250. Do you think at any point in time someone will actually pull the trigger on saying, you know what, we will not have an instance unless you are medium or better? Who wants to take the reins on that?
Ooh.
As a DJ?
No, it's like Avatar, like a medium rating. Right?
Yeah, so
That's
like,
what you're talking about?
yeah, so like most of the groups will put up a kind of a warning, being like, hey, you know, just to let you know, we are looking for medium or better avatars, and if you don't comply, then you may be kicked from the instance. Do you think that there will actually be a group that really enforces that at some point in time?
I mean, haven't they? Yeah, there has been groups that have enforced that.
Yeah.
Like, it's just whether or not people listen. You know?
True.
So I don't. There isn't a way to like block people from being in a very poor avatar. You know, there's been shows that I've been to where there's like one dude walking around being like, "Hey, you're in a very poor avatar," and you know, it feels like, you know, you're in like some camp or something. Like, Jesus, like I just want to vibe, but you know, it's like, yeah, I don't know. I do not know. If there was like a setting, then that would be like more ideal.
It's not a group setting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is a good question. Why isn't it a group setting that's like, you know, it defaults to some lower, or I guess higher rating?
You can just not allow people in. Like, they literally cannot join.
That's kind of where I'm trying to get at, is I feel like we've had this community long enough that you should, I don't want to say you should know better, but of course, you know, if you want a specific, you know, if you want your boobs to move, or you have a jiggly thing, or you have some sort of a ball or something, that you could make that much better. But I'm looking to see when that hammer will start to fall, maybe next year, saying absolutely not.
I think the first thing that will be like the hammer will be like explicit content, more so than like the rating of your avatar. I think that'll be the first kind of like, you know, thing that's really regulated over that. So, but that's like a whole conversation and a half for sure.
I'm sure, yeah. Well, it's interesting to talk about, just especially because I feel like everyone in the community knows about it. Whether or not they have enough time to actually fix the issue about getting medium or better is a time-related issue. But as you know, as our community has been blossoming for the past 2 years after the pandemic, you know, what can we do to kind of kickstart 2025 with medium or better avatars, besides actually being like, okay, you're going to dress up as Goofy, you're going to dress up as somebody else, and you're going to dress up as a cartoon character just because it's a medium or better?
I think it also comes a lot down to the availability of avatars as well. You can do some incredible stuff while still remaining with a low poly count and a small texture memory limit, but it's not as accessible. It's way easier just to go and make a 300,000 poly avatar than it is to make something that is medium or better. And a lot of people want to look like, you have the option to be anything in VR. You can choose whatever kind of body that you want and what is a better representation of yourself than maybe what you were given. And it's hard to try and tell people, I'm sorry, you can't represent yourself that way, and because of because the technology limits. So I think it really comes down to the availability, particularly of free public avatars that people can use and really like, that are medium or better. As someone like me personally, I have one good and the rest of my avatars are all excellent. It's doable, but it's a skill. Like, retopologizing is an entire industry. So trying to make that available and more common, as well as it also comes down to avatar creators as well when they sell avatars. If you've ever been on, Booth or Gumroad, a lot of the time they won't actually tell you the details of how many polys something has or what is the texture file. And it can be very hard to, purchase and assemble a avatar if that's what you do. I don't know a lot of people who, scratch make their own avatars. It's, it's difficult, it's challenging. So I think that realistically it comes down a bit to the avatar creators, and also ability, teaching people how to actually optimize avatars could also go a long way.
Yeah, I know somewhere down the road, while it is kind of still very important, and it to me as a DJ, it's also kind of like, when people do come in and they want to represent themselves, their immediate response is, maybe I should just block or put on my safety settings. And while that does good for them, a lot of people are just around them kind of have to do the same thing. So I don't know if it's an immediate annoyance to be able to do that comparable to having something ready-made medium-wise. But obviously, that's a topic for another time. That is still kind of, when it comes to being able to fit in 80 people into an instance. But kind of getting a little bit back on the topic about Baptizm as a group, I noticed on the website there are a ton of staffers. Bobby, do you find that overwhelming, or do you wish to have more?
We need more. You
100%.
always need more.
Literally.
If you want to do something amazing, you need people, bro. You cannot do none of this is possible without every gear in the machine. You need so many people, and us running at, I think we're running at 25, 26, 27. I don't remember the number because we just added a couple. But you always need more.
Yeah, tell us about, I know you were telling me, sorry to cut you off there, but you were telling me about how like all of those pieces are working in one event. Can you just tell me a little bit about what everybody's kind of roles are when it comes to building a baptism event?
So I suppose it would start off with me reaching out to DJs, and then getting people to work on the poster, and then Fokie updates the website every time with event information, the poster, and then whenever we get like a new person on board, he puts them up there too. So you have to have a lot, like it's a lot of steps going from like concepting an event to actually running it. Most of the back end, I would argue, is probably into making a poster, and Yeb can speak on that when I'm finished with this little tangent. And then when we get past the poster, it's a lot of back end stuff and preparation, like in like the Discord server we have. So we'll make like a channel for it, and then we'll ping all the DJs, give them like stream keys and whatnot for what they need, UV maps, whatever, make sure everybody's prepared. And then day of is where everybody comes together and we just get the event running. That's probably the most taxing for the team, because like everybody gives their all for 4 hours. And I think it's also the most stress I ever get under is when we run an event, because we've come to be seen as like a sort of a one shot type of deal where like you get a set at one assembly because we have so many people on the wait list to play. And so I always feel super, super bad if like technical issues happen and people like don't get their time. Because that's something I've always been super, super adamant about. It's like, if you have an hour set and, we're behind 5 minutes, you get to play your hour no matter what, because you've waited this long to play. So going back to like the team, we have a bunch of people doing different things at once. So like I'll typically wrangle up the DJs, Fokie and Yeb. Yeb runs the stream the whole time. Fokie typically will run the pre-stream screen and the what is it called when you do the sound, the EQing of the stuff.
Yeah,
as
and
well.
then also I'm the backup, like if shit hits the fan, DJ.
Yes. So Yeb and Fokie and Blackstar are always ready to be a backup if something goes wrong. So like if a DJ's stuff is just not working, like if their equipment's not turning on or something blows up, we have people on standby for that. But yeah, I'm gonna pass this off to Yeb so we can talk about the pre-production with all the posters and stuff because I love that process.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of this kind of pre-production work, like creating the promotion around an event, and also all of the, your graphics and things needed for the event. We've always tried to keep the brand kind of cohesive, so you can always look at a baptism poster and hopefully realize it's a baptism poster. Of course, there is side events like the Catechism event, which is generally an entirely different genre that happens once a yonder. But going from that, also deciding who's actually going to work on that poster. Obviously, there's a lot of people, but we normally are working about 6 months out of an event, trying to work out who is supposed to be doing what kind of thing and what kind of styles and motifs we want in these. Generally, in a poster production, there will be about 3 people minimum working on it. But we've had up to 9 people working on the same promo for an event, particularly when we're having to do, video promotion and artist introductions and spotlights. So there's a lot of people, working on the background. The way we like to run the art department is by having everyone kind of be a specialist, so you don't have to put in a huge sprint of an effort and then you got nothing for months. It's more, you're just doing illustrations, you're just doing 3D modeling and animating, you're just doing typography, you're just doing compositing. So it means that you end up with a lot of different people working on the same project. So a lot of moving pieces and making sure they work together right. And that's why we do work with such a long time frame. Like generally a good 6 months is the best case scenario. But, things go wrong and sometimes it's a couple of days and it's head down and have to get something out as quickly as possible. That does happen. And then there can be also issues in the booking process where someone can't do something, we have to get someone else in and we'll have to push back that production phase. But yeah, I would say that on an average time, just me, I'm spending 20 hours working on Baptism a week, 20, 30 hours. But I some of the, particularly the illustrators, they do put in quite a lot of time. And yeah, as I said, a lot of time commitment in that. I'd also say not all of the art team do the live production side of things. Some people do. One of our moderators for the Twitch stream, he is also an artist and works on the art side of things. As I said, I run the Twitch stream cams. That's my job. So I don't actually get to go to any of the events in VR. But yeah, that's kind of the situation. Generally, the people who are doing live production. There's also the photographers as well. We have a relatively large photography team, just so people can do it for an hour or 2 hours and still be able to go and enjoy the event. And we can provide people with photos of the event and also take that footage and use it for video production and whatnot later on.
Does seem like a lot of work. I mean, you did say 20 to 25 hours, 22 hours a week.
Yeah, on an
labor
average
love,
week
though.
it would be like that.
Yeah, definitely labor of love. It sounds like our program here. But Bobby, I know you were talking about how you want to get even more people involved. Is it something as simple as just going to the Discord, or what kind of requirements are you kind of looking for the future?
Oh, that's a good question. I think we'd all appreciate an extra person on every front. I know Yeb has told me numerous times an extra illustrator, an extra 3D modeler would just be like a godsend. I think the hardest part is finding someone who's passionate and willing to do it for free. I think the free part is the big thing here. We don't make money at all, and so paying people, hourly on 3D modeling is something we just can't afford. Especially if we want to have the prospect of running IRL events, you need to have some money saved up, because that's just not something you can just throw $100 at and hope it works. You have to put a lot of time, effort, and money into it. And so the hardest part for us that I found with looking for new staff is either finding people who are willing to put in like the time requirement for just the level of the project, and then people being sustained to work on the project for longer than like 6 months. We've had a bunch of people like just lose interest or not like the direction of the project, and it happens like with everything in life. Like people just move on or have bigger aspirations or want to focus on their own brand, which is like power to you. So it's always hard to find more staff, but I'm hopeful for it. I think when we really get the ball rolling on what we want to do with some of these larger scale things and events, I think we'll have the staff numbers we want. But for now, we just got to work with the amount of people we have.
I think earlier you were mentioning how when you were trying to find some people to come on to the show today that you were going to ask a fourth person to come in because they kind of ranked up a little bit. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, shout out Kryptonite in the chat.
Crypto.
Kryptonite is our world dev. We had a long conversation, me, Yeb, and Fokie, about the future and what we want to do with everything, and that really came down to splitting everything pretty heavily. The thing that we've had a large problem with like staffing and whatnot is like information feed down, because that's just a lot of us are working on our own pace, on our own tasks for the same goal, but it's hard to vocalize that only because meeting with that many different people is like impossible. I mean, Crypto is in Europe, Yeb is in Australia, Fokie and I are in US, so it's like finding just time for us four to meet is insane. But getting like every other person on staff, and then you account for people working full-time jobs and people with other projects and people with like lives outside of VRChat, it's really hard to find that time. And so Crypto stepped up to be sort of the head of everything like event space wise. So that goes with like making and modeling whatever we need outside of like VRChat in terms of like spaces, making our space, updating the space every event, working with other world devs and learning from them, and it sort of gives him the ability to make the decisions we know he's going to make correctly on his own. Because before we used to have like meetings for all these big decisions, and it sort of took a lot of time and effort because these meetings were never quick. They're like an hour, and so it's like that's an hour. Well, if you want to look at it like 4 man hours because we had 4 people meeting, it saves a lot of time and energy, and so we can put those 4 man hours into something else because we're all able to lead our own little quadrant of it. So yeah, shout out Crypto.
I think one of the best things to look at Baptizm right now is just how professional it is to have such a large team to do all the different things from photography to website to art design to VJing to DJing to making sure that the audio is working out fine. And to me, having those trades are so important, especially in a virtual space like this, because when you first come in here, you're just thinking, oh, I'm going to have a good time, I'm going to go see a show. And then when you do start to lend those skills to a really large major project like this, I would like to think somewhere down the line that the people that are working on that can use that as a professional portfolio, be able to use that as something that they've done that worked out for a much larger event that they could go professional with. And so where I'm trying to go with this is let's talk a little bit about the fine line between what you guys do on average weekly in Baptizm that could really showcase somewhere down the line professional with a profession in that particular thing. For example, I know Fokie was talking about video game development earlier, being able to be in here to kind of work hand in hand when it comes to virtual space and creating events and stuff like that. I would only assume that this heightens your career and your experience in what you do in real life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I highly encourage everybody that is working with us currently and anybody in the future who chooses to work with us to use the content that they create with us for their portfolio. They definitely should. You know, because we wear a lot of hats, you know, and you know, it's I don't know, it's you're making a lot of cool stuff and you can use that for your own career and such. You know, I highly encourage that.
Not saying that it
Right.
happens overnight, but I mean, it does take some time to develop your portfolio. I don't want to make it seem like everybody can hop on and be like, you're going to be rich with career, you know, but like,
No,
yeah.
well, what I'm trying to say is so like, you know, for me, it took me like I don't know, like 2 years to build my portfolio in my job for like UI related design, and that was just doing contract work here and there, and you know, somebody paying me a little bit of money, and I stayed for a little bit and put that on my website and such. So like for us, you know, anybody that's with us that has a specific skill that's like creating really amazing content that people are really enjoying, like for example world design and such, like you can use that for a like a game job, right? You know, marketing and promotion and art and stuff, there's so many applications to it that are outside of just, you know, what we do. So I always highly encourage it, and I know that Yeb and Bobby do agree with me on that as well. um,
Yeah, 100%. I can say from like the artist perspective, definitely it is a huge portfolio boost, particularly if you are a specialized artist who is more used to working within well, who needs to work within a team to create that kind of content that you really want. Baptism's a fantastic option for that. I can say personally, a lot of the things, like I'm not fantastic at typography, but having someone else be able to do that can produce a beautiful piece of art better than I can to you know, to add to the portfolio. There's also occasionally like other organizations or artists might want to work with you. I can say that some of the work we did on the Ascendance 2 promo, Zardonic really liked and wanted to use some of those models for his 20th year anniversary tour. And so that those assets went to his team and is now on, you know, his Instagram as part of the promotion for that world tour. So there's definitely opportunities that arise. There's also, I would say, that people see the work and then ask for commissions. I know that Crypto has been commissioned as well of some of the baptism work he's done. As I said, fantastic world developer. So
Now, are you finding people are actually coming into your events and then just being like, I really like this. Who can I talk to about doing this particular thing? Is that what you're kind of going down? Or?
yeah, I mean we have, yeah, in the past.
yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's amazing alone, just to continuously hear that. Those are the types of victory stories that you kind of hear about, but you don't actually hear about it later on in a much larger scale, and how much influence that you can have in virtual space compared to the professionalism in there. And one of the other things that one of the obvious things about the DJ groups and Baptism alone is the amount of talent, not only that goes behind the scenes, that goes on live, but the DJs themselves. And this is going to be kind of a controversial topic to talk about, but Bobby, tell us about some of your opinions on some new up and coming DJs. Do you think that we have too many coming in at the same time, or do you find that more people are coming up to you requesting time slots?
If I love that there's new DJs. I absolutely love that there's new people joining the space. And the first thing I'll say is, if anybody ever tells you to quit, you tell them fuck off. You don't quit. You continue DJing and you continue growing your passion. I think if you attempt to tell a new DJ to give up or stop trying, you're a piece of shit and you shouldn't be in the space.
Mm-hmm.
I think that fostering passions like that is like a big deal, and it's something that's easily accessible in VR because you don't have to be a person who sells out arenas to play in VR. Because like I started with link posting, and that's like in my opinion the like step one, you know. And if I didn't have people supporting me, I wouldn't even be doing music anymore. as for people asking for time slots, I typically get maybe one ask a week. It's not as much as you'd think, because a lot of the super talented people we try to like scout out, and that doesn't mean that I've hit everybody. There's tons of people I've missed, and there's tons of people I probably don't even know about because so many new people are coming in. Yeah, I think that's where I think if you're a new DJ, keep going. Because there are tons and tons and tons of spaces that will give you slots, and if you're not getting slots, I think you just need to open like a public Orion or like one of the Berlin, like kind of those bathroomy worlds, and I think you just need to DJ and put yourself out there, like go on a public and do that. Another thing, I think you should be DMing and attending events of the places you want to play at. So if you want to play at somewhere, I think you should be there. I think you should be not necessarily integrated into the community, but I think you should go watch an event and see like what you could experience if you want to DJ there and figure out if it's your thing. If you really enjoy it, I think you should reach out to the owner. There are a lot of club owners that I know that would be more than happy to have more DJs on their roster. And I think a lot of people have this misconception that if you ask somebody for a slot, you're like desperate or you're shittier because you didn't get asked to play or whatever. Like, nah, man, I don't think that people think that. Like, whenever somebody asks me for a slot, I'm not immediately like, oh, this person just must be bad because they didn't, I think of it as like an opportunity for them to show off their skills to like a good audience. And if they're not so we have applications for Baptizm. So if they're not a fit for Baptizm, like there are tons of other clubs that I'll recommend them to that they could play at, or I'll even give them tips and tricks till like they pass the application. I think it's kind of like a double-edged sword. If you're a new DJ, I absolutely think you should continue to keep trying and practicing and playing sets. But I also think there is sort of like some places have like I don't want to say skill requirement, but they're looking for a certain sound. And I think if you don't meet that sound, I think you don't ever get discouraged. Seriously, don't ever get discouraged. Like if a club tells you can't play there and you just give up, that's, I think, the wrong move. I think you should attempt to keep going and just play other places, do Twitch streams, do whatever you need to do, and just always improve. I've been denied tons and tons and tons of sets, and if I were to sort of give up, I wouldn't be still DJing. That's probably that's where I'm going with that.
I know one of the hot takes we keep going a little bit back and forth as far as again, hobby to professional and trying to find that nice common ground on that. Do you think that there will ever be a time where most of the DJs that have gotten the maximum amount of exposure that they require to the point where they're saying, why am I not getting paid for this? Do you think that there's going to be a nice comfortable shift between how many people are constantly getting time slots to a point where they're just like, I don't know, somewhere down the line I need to get paid for this?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think I think that there are so many new DJs that if somebody is refusing to play without getting paid, you will just be cycled out of that club. You will not get a slot at that club. You will not be able to play at that club because there's just not, there's hardly any money in the space. And I think that's a good thing. It's been Yeb Folk and I have talked for, months about money involvement and what you want to do with that. And there's not a good way to do it without alienating the people who've built you. Cause everybody's without the DJ, you wouldn't have an event. But without the audience, there is no event. The audience is the first people you need to cover. Because if you don't have an audience, nobody's going to want to play at your space. So if you alienate them by, being like, hey, we have to pay all of our DJs because they want money, so we need to sell some sort of tickets or some sort of entry fee, people are either going to go to a different event or that DJ is not going to be booked at that club anymore because people just don't pay VRDJs for slots. And I don't think that's a problem. I think if you have a problem with not getting paid, you are more than happy to DJ on Twitch. You're more than happy to not DJ for a club if they don't want to pay you. you have the freedom to do whatever you want. I just don't particularly think you will get very far, because you have to build an audience somehow. And if you're like wanting to get paid, even if you play at this, the same club every week for 9 months, and you want to get paid virtually, I don't think it's like feasible. I just don't think it's feasible. If you want to pay somebody $20 every set, why aren't you paying the staff? Why aren't you paying the VJs? Why aren't you paying the LDs? Why aren't you paying the dancers? Like it's a whole list of it. Like you pay one, you pay all, and then you end up being like $250 down every event because you can't just charge your audience. Like they're not going to show up. Then they'll go to a different event.
Yeah, I would just say too, like just because of the the uniqueness of VRChat, obviously it's a video game, so literally like if somebody says, hey, we're going to charge tickets like $5 per ticket to like go into this space, they're just going to be like, all right, well, I'll just go to somewhere else. I can just see my friend in this world and join them, and there's a free show that's going on with DJs who want to play and such. And I mean there's exceptions, like for example, like ACL, they did a VR event, and it was like $400 for the entire not ACL, it's South by Southwest. Sorry, South by Southwest. You'd pay like $400, and included into that was like a VR world and VRChat that you could go and see like all the shows and talks and stuff. So, but that's like a different thing. It's like just trying to go to a show where DJs are at. I mean, there's so many DJs. You can just join one of your friends, and there's probably something going on. So yeah, it's really difficult. I think that that's the current thing. I don't know what that's going to look like in the future. But yeah, I mean, Bobby Yeb and I have talked quite extensively about that sort of thing. Like how is this really? How does this all work from a hobby to a professional pathway? Right.
I'd also say it's about like we've always wanted to have a accessible experience. Like having as many people being able to attend something, I think is great, and that's what VRChat has really given us. It's given us a space that is not location based, so we can all go to these events and have these experiences. And there's already a pretty big like monetary entry. Headsets are not cheap, PCs are not cheap. Then charging for shows as well on top of that, it's going to be a really hard sell. And if it is a thing that's going to happen eventually, it's going to be a pretty bad transition that's going to happen. But I don't think that we're going to see a future where the only access route to shows is paid venues.
Mm-hmm. I think all of this is very interesting to bring up, especially because while we are still considering 2022 as kind of the DJ boom year of when it really happened here compared to where we are now, and how much we've grown and how many shows we've done, and again, as Tupper's been kind of telling us, even during TwitchCon San Diego, he got to see the most amount of people in VR, even though a lot of VR people were in San Diego for TwitchCon. Just to hear all of that information, it's very interesting to hear about people coming in, what they're expecting, and how far groups can actually take to put on such a great product. Of course, with Baptizm having such an extensive staff, as you were saying, yeah, it is kind of a struggle to be able to pay the staff that works so hard throughout the year if you're just focusing on one particular financial something. Somewhere else down the line, I know this is still another kind of a hot take, and it's nice to stay grounded to this to get a good idea of where we're headed in 2025. But even this past year alone, we've been seeing probably the most, I don't want to even say a record number of IRL VR experiences worldwide, whether it's going somewhere, seeing a couple shows in Amsterdam all the way out to California, in New York, maybe in Australia or something. But this year alone, we've seen so many IRL experiences where DJs will actually go out and pay for a venue to have a festival or have their group have a big old thing. Do you believe that while we're still kind of saving the money for that sort of thing while also providing a free instance in VRChat, do you think that will kind of toss the bag up a little bit in the future when it comes to either, should I see it live or should I go see it in VR?
I can, or actually, yeah. I'll hit this one. I think that more times than not, if you are offering a free alternative, I think somebody will take the free alternative. I don't think that having to fly out or drive out and then get a hotel room or find somewhere to stay and then paying for like entrance and if you want drinks and food, I don't think that if you offer a free alternative, you are going to get a large audience from VR to your event. And Yeb and I have talked about this, I don't know, probably 10 plus hours. You have to market towards the space that you're playing at. You can't market towards all your VR people because those people are going to be in VR for your event. You are not going to get 80 people to fly out to come IRL and hang out at your space. It's not going to happen. Unless you're just like either too big to fail or you're like in like a super good area where you're close to everybody that's in your community. Because like with VRChat, since everybody is all over the planet, trying to do something like this, marketing towards only your VR audience, your event is like going to fail. Because you're gonna have, an 80-person lobby with a queue in VR, but IRL you're gonna have like 5 people or 10 people come from VR. I don't know. It's pretty hard to balance that. Go ahead, Yeb.
Yeah, I think it's also an accessibility issue from money again as well. Like for me personally, I live in Australia. The only VR IRL thing that I know of is Lona that runs down in Melbourne. There's some stuff in Japan, obviously, but even going there, that's an 8-hour drive for me to go up there. Australia is pretty big, and like it's the same thing. You can't really expect people, your VR audience, to be able to spend the kind of money to go and support you in a live show. I think that it's a bit unfair on them. They've already supported you through VR, and they will continue to do that. And I think it also comes down to the roots of a lot of the time why people are in VR as well. Like if you're generally, this is obviously a generalization and does not go for everyone, but if you are in a good city already where there is a lot of live music going on and that is your passion, you're probably not going to be in that many VR events and not really introduced into the space as much. But if you are from a rural area, say, like where I live in Canberra, the Australian capital, there is no drum and bass locally, or nothing within within Neurofunk. So the only option I've got to listen to that sounds is through VR, without flying over to Europe. So I think you need to consider the affordability of your audience actually traveling to one of these things. There's going to be your super fans who do have the financial room to be able to do that, but I don't think that's going to be a majority. So really advertising to a local audience and allowing your VR performers to perform in front of a live audience of people who have never listened to their sound, I think gives you a huge amount of value without just solo catering to trying to get your VR people from across the world to come to your live show.
It's kind of a little bit of a toss up, and it's just something that I think it's really nice of all of us to sit here and have a nice, open conversation about this, just because one of the things that I would really dislike is this group, this community, this DJ community, to start really spreading out so far that, the people that can't afford to have venues and stuff, complain about much larger success, but to each path their own. But it's just more of a way to enlighten and say, listen, you can have an IRL experience in VR without actually meeting up in real life, enjoy it here, enjoy the comfort, as well as have the entirety of your staff there as well. That's equally important. And being able to identify those things is super important as well. But especially looking forward into the future, I know there's a yearning for it, and especially on Twitch with some DJs saying, listen, we can make a career out of this. We can make some money with this. There are also some DJs that want to make a hobby out of it as well. And that's, and again, each their own, to each path their own. And it's something that I feel like as a collective, we need to remember, as opposed to, we're going to DJ all the clubs in VRChat in hopes to kind of go out there and make really big business out of it. Another quick thing to kind of transition to is the one thing that I'm super interested to know a little bit about is being able to collaborate with other groups in VR, and kind of getting a good idea of what are you guys looking for within a collaboration when you're collaborating with other groups?
Well, I can just say, like, just from the beginning, and I know, things obviously change, but like in the beginning, Bobby and I decided we didn't want to do like those formal collabs, just because we wanted to grow something ourselves from the ground up, and work really hard to build a community that loved working and being at our events. And now we've obviously branched out a little bit, but I think as time goes on, it's always nice to bring other people into the fold, right? That was just like in the beginning, we were like, I don't know, Bobby, you can kind of speak on this though, like as well. Like we had that conversation before, like, just the ability to trust people in this space with other clubs, right? It feels like that was kind of a difficult thing to do. So yeah, you know what I'm talking about though, Bobby.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So
long story short, it's we like to run a pretty tight ship in our space at Baptism. We didn't like originally start this, like, I don't know if we want to say like hard asses about it. That's the term that I like using. We're pretty hard ass about how we want things to turn out. So when you play in our space, we want it to be perfect. And what I mean by we want it to be perfect is we want the event to be perfect, but we also want coordination and planning to be perfect from the people we bring in. So like DJs and VJs, because they're getting it's like they're getting our all, so we want their all for their performance. We put everything out for one of our events, and it's really, really, really something special when the DJs and VJs that come on also put in that same level of like you gave it your all. Because then they can always look back at that performance and be like, wow, that was really truly something sick. But yeah, with collabs, since we're like just like literally a group of hard asses, it's pretty hard for us to work with like other groups. We require quite an intensive level of communication. Some people may even just say like the word annoying. Like we're pretty persistent and pretty on people about communication, and so when that isn't there right out the gate, we instantly start preparing for the worst to happen, which has saved our asses, multiple times. Point being, collabs are just really hard because we strive for perfection, and so if somebody were to come in and not be on that mindset, it frustrates us quite a lot. Not saying that they have to be perfect or that everything has to be executed perfectly, but the goal is obviously to give the audience the best possible event you can run. And so working with people who don't necessarily care or don't want to put that time in, again, it's fine. Whatever you do with your event space, please keep doing it. Like if you want to run your thing, please, be my guest. But then I ask for that same respect towards us. If you want to run something with us, come in at the level that we want to output at, come in at that high level of functioning, and like I think you can make something awesome.
I mean, yeah, it's merely like, I think it's just we see the events differently,
Oh, yeah.
It's like, because we're so passionate about it and we work a lot, we put a lot of time into it. We're hoping that those who work with us have that same passion as well. And it's definitely like, you just have to work with the people who see that same, I guess, vision and alignment and such. And, sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it's great, right? you know.
Yep.
So
Do you find that certain collaborations, and again, if it doesn't work out with that collaboration, do you find that those people kind of like maneuver their way into another group or another set to see what would work best for them? Or
well, I mean, it's their prerogative to to go to whoever they want to work with. It's just we're pretty clear, like from the get go, like, hey, we have this event, we're doing X, Y, and Z. We need these things done by these times because it's just part of the process of what we do. And it's like, it may be intense for some people, especially like, some people will be like, well, y'all are doing it just for, for fun, or like y'all aren't, it's not like I've heard times where it's like, oh, it's not like a business and such. We function like a business and such, and that's just because we're so passionate about it, and that's why we have these structures, because we want to make sure that our passion's being used in a way that's I guess enjoyable to those who come to the events. Like, we could just like open up a world and then just be like, all right, have these 5 DJs come every hour and play. It doesn't matter, and we could automate everything and stuff, but I don't know. That's just not how we've like to run things. We really do like making sure that there's a. I don't want to say like quality bar, because I feel like that's just putting us into a pigeonhole of like, oh, we're better than other people and such. Because there's events that just like they throw up a world and there's like 80 people packed within like 30 seconds and they're just vibing. They don't have to plan it all and such. We just have a different process, and we like to really think about it because we care. We care a lot
I would
about
say
what we
that
do.
we definitely have a more curated experience. And that's what we strive to do. We want our things to be as perfectly in line with our vision as possible. And it's fine to have a more casual outlook on the things. I think some like casual events are incredible. Not every space needs to have the staff members we run or do the things we do in the background, but working with clubs that don't really have the same vision in that kind of heavily curated experience, it can just be a bit challenging sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah, it's perfectly acceptable for you to say, I have a really good product and I'm proud of it. You could totally do that without sounding cocky. You could totally do that.
Well, but I don't want to get it misconstrued with like when you're saying like we're striving for perfection. If you're not at the same level as us, then that means that you're not perfect, and that puts one group of people into one area, and then that separates us from them. There's a disconnect. We're just really, we love this project so much, and there just takes a lot of like planning and figuring out the best moves. We really want to provide a good experience to people, and this is how we do it. Like I said, it's just like there's other places out there that just they don't have to do that, or like their crowd that they cater to doesn't really want to be around that that vibe, right? But there's all these small little decisions that happen with our events, with the music, when we post, all those kind of things. We think about it quite critically, and that's I think that's just how we function. So like if you're wanting to collab with us, I think that everything needs to be aligned in terms of vision and process, and yeah, I would agree with Bobby. We do kind of come across as hard asses because we do a lot of shit, man.
Let's be honest, bro. We are hard asses. Like,
yeah.
We put time, energy, money, effort, blood, sweat, tears on this, and I think that we are allowed just as much as everybody else to be hard asses with our own space. And if people don't want to work with us, there are hundreds of other really amazing places that will absolutely work with you. It's just we are very passionate about it, and I wish we didn't get. When we first started, there was a lot of animosity towards us because we're like assholes or perfectionists or pieces of shit because we don't let just like anybody play. And it's like there are so many other event spaces that do the same shit, so many, and they don't hear a word. I don't understand. Like I don't get it. Actually, I wanted to shout out Deity Anubis. They posted like this really, really in-depth thing on Twitter about how they've spent so much time curating their space, and it's not them being assholes if you don't get booked there. It's them making the space theirs. They spent the time on it. They spent the energy on it. They probably spent a shit ton of money on it, and it's like, you have the right to do that, and people do not like that. I don't understand why people don't like that. If you don't like that concept, there are hundreds of other places you can go to. Hundreds.
You know, it's
But then
interesting. Go ahead.
we strive on having that level of professionalism, of commitment from our staff and DJs, of like an output. We want a high level output, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
One of the beautiful things about VRChat, in my opinion, is just the revolving door of talent and vision and creativity. And one of the blessings in disguise about this particular process is, again, it's not a matter of being a part of an exclusive club. It's about kind of motivating you to do the things that you enjoy. And obviously, if you're not in a good situation, go do something that makes you in a good environment, in a good situation. And for those people that do complain about, you know, how aggressive, not really aggressive, but like how straightforward.
hard ass.
Yeah, hard ass, I guess. Yeah, a hard ass, so you guys could be. You know, if that's something they can't really get down with, that maybe that's a forward motivation for them to make something even better, or a different club, or a group of people that could. Yeah, and it has been happening. So it's been, it's not like you guys are the ones that are pushing people to go do that, but people are genuinely doing that organically, and it's quite an interesting concept to even think about the past 2 years. We're sitting down with Baptizm here on VRCDJ Live. We're actually running out of time, just a couple more minutes here. I'm just going to throw a couple more questions at you guys. What do you guys think we should be doing moving forward when it comes to, I know we were talking about some of those videos on YouTube that were kind of depicting VRChat in such a weird negative light. How do you suppose we fix that with our DJ community and kind of showcasing this to the populace to have them come and enjoy us in VR?
Go ahead.
Well,
Fokie, you got this.
yeah, I mean, the tech needs to be more accessible and more consumer friendly. I mean, like when I was starting to get into VR stuff, you know, like the Valve Index was basically like the the actual most like capable VR system that really I was able to get into. And now with like the Quest headset and such, that's great. But we're talking about like if you really want to be in a virtual space and feel like you're in that virtual space as a like an individual, and it's like your second life. No connection intended, but you know what I'm saying, right? You know, you really need like the full body tracking. You need the whole setup, you know, and there's a large financial commitment to that. So I don't know, like we're years off of like, you know, that bringing in the general populace who aren't into this space into VR. Right?
That's fully
just
immersion, though. Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be like, it has to be consumer friendly, but you're still fully immersed into it. You know, like we're talking about like 10 years from now, like like for that tech to be really, you know, possible for, you know, there's probably like these projects, I don't know, like underground that, you know, people have like a higher level of, you know, consumer product where it's able to be to all the things that you enjoy with like the heavy hardware are capable within one headset. Like that, basically it needs to be at that point, and it needs to be able to run 250 people in an instance.
Right.
And you need to be able to pick up your hands when you're DJing, because DJs would be using that equipment.
That's right.
It's just, there's so much, and we're just breaking. It's like we're just breaking the surface on all of this, you know. So, and then that's when I think people will come into the space and be like, "This is something I actually want to go see." this is actually something I want to engage in. If you're like a video gamer, then you'll think this is cool. Like 1-2 years from now, you think this is even more cooler. But we're talking about like your average Joe, that lives somewhere in,
Keeps
middle
thinking
America.
about Mark Zuckerberg. Yeah.
Yeah, and somewhere in middle America, some dude that's just like, they all they want to do is just, well, this is like the Steve Jobs effect too, with like, Macintosh, or is going from like, selling computer like incomplete computers, and then it was a movie that was like some like they brought him like a computer board, and he was like, I want a complete computer with a screen. People aren't going to buy just the board. Right. So that's like, once it's at that level where it's like the VR headset does everything and it's like $500-$600, like, then that's going to bring a lot more people in, and it has to also accommodate for all the other things that we were talking about. That's the tech limits, like the world size and optimization and such. So.
It's definitely a bit of a like cycle as well, that I think that if there was more really, really compelling VR experience as well in general, it's like Half-Life Alyx, incredible. There's things like Boneworks. This is outside of VRChat, obviously. That's obviously going to push for more hardware and more things to happen from that side. Sorry. But without the hardware adoption, there's no reason for the developers to make those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a chicken and the egg scenario. But so I think we're going to move on at a very slow pace, but we will get there eventually, hopefully.
I mean, that's just everybody too. It's not just us. It's just this whole idea of like doing these kind of performances and shows. What does that like? How does that make like? When will it be attractive to those who are making millions of dollars, right? Like, and that's going to take a lot of time. It will get there. Like, I feel like that it's inevitable, but it's just we're not there yet.
They just keep on doing awesome things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Before we let you guys go, I know we were going to kind of talk a little bit about it before we started getting really passionate about all sorts of different topics tonight.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that is kind of it's an unknown known that very soon at the beginning of 2025, you guys are going to be celebrating 2 years of baptism. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yay.
Yes.
We've been working on promo since October. Yay! No, we have, this is probably our most extensive promo. It's a pretty large collaboration from quite a few groups that like we all really enjoy, and a lot of our crowd really enjoys. And I think people will be really surprised at some of the people we've gotten on this one. Like this one's it's gonna be really fucking sick. And I'm very excited for the promo to start coming out. But yeah, it'll be good. It'll be sick. It'll be something you definitely do not want to miss.
How are people going to find out more information about this really sick, awesome, cool show?
Just join the server /baptism on Discord. BAPTIZM. Just join it up, and it'll be at the top on the events tab. There's nothing in there other than a bunch of question marks, because I like doing that because it's fun to be, excited and tease people about it. But they'll give you the date and time of everything. And yeah.
Awesome. So before we get going here, do you guys want to kind of do quick shout outs to how we can find more information about baptism and or how to find events going on in baptism?
Yeah.
Look at our Twitter, look at our Instagram, look at our Discord, look at our, where else do we have? We don't have a Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at our website. Go
Yeah.
to the website. Everything's on the website.
Follow the Instagram. We need more Instagram people. Follow the Instagram too, please. That'd be great.
Begging you.
There's also YouTube if you want to look at some past sets that's been held at baptism as well. Get an idea for what the experience is like.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, I know everyone is really looking forward to a lot more shows from Baptism at the end of this year, as well as the 2-year anniversary coming up very, very well. I want to say even very, very soon, but even past the holidays, we're going to be really excited about it. But Bobby, Fokie, Yeb, thank you so much for coming on VRC DJ Live and talking about baptism with us.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us. Really appreciate it.
And feel free to come on back if you got some more promotional stuff down the road. And for all of you people that are watching on Twitch right now, thank you guys for coming out for a wonderful time. And of course, once we're finished with this interview here, we're also going to be posting all of this up on YouTube at VRCDJLIVE. You can also find us on Twitter and on Blue Sky. You got to do both of them now. That's kind of a thing at VRCDJLIVE. And again, make sure that you're taking a look at our socials, because we will be having another guest come in on Thursday. We're going to be talking with Cozy Club and seeing all kind of nonsense and shenanigans they got going on for next week. And until then, why don't you guys say goodbye? And we'll chat with you next time.
Thanks for having us, Rob.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Rob.
Rob.